Hi, this is Ms. Klemme, and welcome to the podcast on eye anatomy. This is the first of a series of podcasts on each of the senses. So today we'll look at anatomy, the next video we'll look at the physiology of the eye, and so on. So speaking of anatomy, what you guys are looking at here is a variety of human lenses. And this lens, for being pretty tiny, is pretty awesome. It's undergone a lot of changes since when you were a developing embryo to what it is today. So here's a picture of an actual healthy one, the clear one. There's a drawing of the same one here, but below it is a lens, and you can see the yellow above on the other picture is a lens with cataracts, where the lens gets really, really cloudy. Now, if you think about it, most structures, all structures in our body are not transparent. Even cartilage, which doesn't have a whole lot, does not have a blood flow to it, is maybe translucent, a little bit cloudy like a cataract lens, but not transparent. And that's because the lens had to go through a lot of changes. It had to destroy its nucleus, all of its organelles, and the only thing really remaining are these proteins called crystalline proteins, which make it, what you guessed, crystal clear. And so the clearer the lens, the better we can see. So it's a pretty crazy change of events from when the lens was first developing. It had all those organelles and now it has none. What we're going to do here is go through each of the structures involved in vision, just like we went through the lens on the previous page. So, and I'll go through these twice. I'll introduce all the anatomical structures and then I'll show you where they occur on the visual pathway, where they are, where light enters them. The first one, way up front there, is the cornea. And the cornea is just a protective covering to help keep debris and things from reaching in, getting in, and scratching the lens. The second is the aqueous humor. This is just the fluid between the outer cornea and the inside of the eye. It helps give the eye its shape and pushes it out in a circular oval shape. And from there we have a pupil. And the pupil is really just a hole in our eye that lets light into the interior. From there, light's going to travel through the lens. The lens will kind of bend and move slightly to focus that image onto the back of the eyeball, which is known as the retina. But to get to the retina, there's another type of fluid in the eye. So we have the aqueous humor in the front, but the larger portion is known as the vitreous humor. And this is the one that really does help keep the shape of the eyeball so it doesn't collapse on itself. Once light gets through the vitreous humor, it lands on the retina, or we hope it lands on the retina. And that's filled with lots of different photoreceptors that change the light images, the light sensory information into electrical signals. And those electrical signals can then travel to the occipital lobe of the brain via the optic nerve. So if you ever see someone trying to find their blind spot by looking in a certain way or pattern, all that really is just where the optic nerve enters the eyeball. So to go back now and recap the actual visual pathway, it's just how these text boxes came up on the screen. So to start things off, we had the cornea, then we had aqueous humor, pupil, lens, the vitreous humor at number 5 on the pathway of light, then number 6, retina, 7, optic nerve, and then to the brain. Now those are all the organs associated with actual light traveling through it, but there's a couple extraneous helpers as well. We have intrinsic muscles, obviously muscles that are inside the eye, extrinsic muscles, which attach to the eyeball itself and then attach to the orbit or the socket around the eye to help move it up, down, left, and right. And finally, we have lacrimal glands. And lacrimal glands just produce those tears to keep the eye moist, to get germs out and debris out. So it kind of works in conjunction with the cornea. But before we end this video, I want to talk about 2 types of intrinsic muscles. The first is the iris. That's a pretty well-known one. It's the colored portion of our eyes, but it's really just a muscle that helps to open open and close the pupil. So if it's a really bright day out, the iris wants to make sure that pupil gets really, really tiny. So not a lot of light gets in, otherwise it's way too much. When it's dark at night, the iris makes sure the pupil opens up a little wider to let as much light in as possible. And the final extrinsic muscle is something called the ciliary body, and I'll kind of shade it in up here. There's one that attaches to the top of the lens and one that attaches to the bottom of the lens. And so it just tugs on the lens to help focus that image so that it does indeed land where it's supposed to, right on the back of the retina. That's basic eye anatomy, and I hope you found that helpful.